All right. So, the FDA has approved the first over-the-counter birth control pill. And you may be asking yourself, that's great. Why does she have a problem with it? What is Susan's problem with an over-the-counter birth control pill? In theory, there's nothing wrong. Obviously, women should have access to birth control. That part nobody disputes. Well, the religious nutcases, and no, I'm not calling all religious people nutcases for the nutcases who are going to call me some religion hater or whatever in the comments, but they will have a problem with that. But I do not have a problem with having birth control being available. My problem is that without reading the article, with what little I know of birth control, not all women can take, the same type of birth control. Some women just can't. It's just like any other medication. Some women can handle certain types, whereas other women cannot. And they have to find different solutions. And then there's also the reason why women are on birth control. If it's used for actual birth control, they might take a certain type of birth control, and then there are different types of birth control that are probably better for things like, regulating your period. And for someone who went through life with a doozy of a period, a part of me wishes I should have tried that. But anyway. So those are my problems without getting into the article. So let's just get into it. Federal regulators on Thursday approved the nation's first over-the-counter birth control pill in a landmark decision that will soon allow American women and girls to obtain contraceptive medication as easily as they buy aspirin and eye drops. The Food and Drug Administration cleared once-a-day Opill to be sold without a prescription, making it the first such medication to be moved out from behind the pharmacy counter. The manufacturer, Ireland-based Perrigo, won't start shipping the pill until early next year, and there will be no age restriction on sales, which I also like. Because, let's face it, teenagers, if they want to have sex, are going to have sex. You're not going to stop them. I mean, you might, if they get proper sex ed, they might decide to put it off. I mean, I guess that's possible that they were all ready and then they learned some stuff and they're like, yeah, I'll pass. I guess that's possible. Not all teenagers are the same. Some might be wanting to have sex. Some might not. Some might feel pressured to have sex. Some might not. Just like adults, there's always a different reason why people have sex. The Food and Drug Administration cleared I read that already. Hormone-based pills have long been the most common form of birth control in the U.S., used by tens of millions of women since the 1960s. Until now, all of them required a prescription. Medical societies and women's health groups have pushed for wider access for decades, noting that an estimated 45% of the 6 million annual pregnancies in the U.S. are unintended. Teens and girls, women of color, and those of low income report greater hurdles in getting prescriptions and picking them up. The challenges can include paying for a doctor's visit, getting time off from work, and finding childcare. This is really a transformation in access to contraceptive care, said Kelly Blanchard, president of IBIS Reproductive Health, a nonprofit group that supported the approval. Hopefully this will help people overcome those barriers that exist now. Now, as much as, yes, the main purpose of birth control is to, prevent pregnancy, I really, really wish that more of these articles would mention that women who just want to regulate their periods can be on birth control, even if they haven't started having sex or aren't currently having sex. There are reasons to take birth control without just not wanting to get pregnant. And I really wish these articles would point that out as opposed to just the obvious. Because yes, you know, yes, we should make it easier to get the medication needed to prevent pregnancies. That's great. But that's not the only reason people take birth control. And I really wish these articles would, point that out. And I'm going to sneeze, I think. Oh, God. I hate allergies. Perrigo says O-pill could be an important new option for the estimated 15 million U.S. women who currently use no birth control or less effective methods such as condoms. They are a fifth of women who are childbearing age. But how many women will actually gain access depends on the medication's price, which Perrigo plans to announce later this year. And I think I heard that they are going to make it affordable. That's what they said. Now, affordable to whom is still up in the air, but that's what they said. The reason why so many of us worked tirelessly for years to get over-the-counter birth control pills is to improve access. Cost shouldn't be one of those barriers, said Dr. Pratima Gupta of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Most older birth control pills cost $15 to $30 for a month's supply without insurance coverage. Over-the-counter medicines are generally much cheaper than prescriptions, but they typically aren't covered by insurance. Forcing insurers to cover the over-the-counter birth control would require regulatory change by the federal government, which women's advocates are urging the Biden administration to implement. The FDA approval gives U.S. women another birth control option amid the legal and political battles over reproductive health, including last year's reversal of Roe v. Wade, which has upended abortion access across the U.S. That said, O-pill's approval is unrelated to the ongoing court battles over the abortion pill mifepristone, and anti-abortion groups have generally emphasized that they do not oppose contraceptives, which are used to prevent pregnancies, not end them. Well, that's good to know because there are plenty of absolute dipshits who seem to conflate the two. So that is nice that in general anti-abortion groups don't have a problem with it. That is good. However, that has done little to ease the fears that contraception could someday become a target. Yes. When the Supreme Court overturned Roe, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote a separate opinion in which he explicitly called on his colleagues to put the High Court same-sex marriage, gay sex, and contraception cases on the table. Which, there's just so much wrong with all of them. But especially the gay sex and contraception, because yes, same-sex marriage is also very important, do not get me wrong, but somehow I see the gay sex and contraception things even more intimate and even less the federal government's business, because at least with marriage you get a marriage license, and that's a government function. So the government has some involvement, even very vicariously, but still some involvement. Gay sex, or sex in general, yeah, nobody's business except the people who are having sex. And like I said, in the case of birth control, women might just want to regulate their periods. It's not that complicated. We've learned with the current craze of people wanting to lose weight with things like Wegovy. this was a diabetic drug. And suddenly people found out that you can lose weight on it, and suddenly people who without diabetes decided to go for it, and then now those with diabetes are shit out of luck. So the fact that drugs can have more than one use is not a new thing. In the last year, the FDA has faced pressure from Democratic politicians, health advocates, and medical professionals to improve access to birth control. The American Medical Association and other leading medical groups backed Opil's application for over-the-counter status. So I hope that means that most women are, that they could tolerate it. I'm sure there's going to be still some women who cannot and will probably still have to go to the doctor for a prescription. But it sounds like for the vast majority, this should work just fine. Birth control pills are available without a prescription across much of South America, Asia, and Africa. I'm sorry, didn't Trump consider the continent of Africa to be one big shithole country? Yes, I know Africa is not a country. Do not at me. But yet Africa, offers over the counter birth control. You know, the super religious, countries that are trying to stamp out gay people out of existence. That continent. I doubt that those countries have over the counter. I would be shocked if they had over the counter birth control. But still, Trump is painting Africa as shithole countries. So, yeah, that's surprising. Perrigo submitted years of research to the FDA to show that women could understand and follow instructions for using the pill. Thursday's approval came despite some concerns by FDA scientists about the company's results, including whether women with certain underlying medical conditions would understand that they shouldn't take the drug. You know, granted, that is a good concern. However, how often have people misused over-the-counter medication like pain relievers? Just because someone is capable of misunderstanding how to use a drug or purposely misusing the drug doesn't mean that isn't a good thing. Yes, there are going to be women who are dumb as bricks and take a drug that they really shouldn't be taking, despite there being, I'm sure, Perrigo would put drug warnings like any other drug. That's, if you have this, and this, don't take this drug. If women still take the drug, well, how much is it the drug company's problem? And how much of it is the woman's? Because, if you're going to a pharmacy where you fill your prescriptions, the pharmacist might be able to say, dude, you do not want to take that. That is, you have this, and this, and this. You should not be taking this drug. So there are safeguards, in theory. And yes, there's going to be women taking a drug that they probably shouldn't be taking, but you could say that about any over-the-counter medication. So, on the one hand, there is that concern. On the other, should that prevent it from being available? I don't know. I mean, personally, if I needed any kind of medication, except for pain, basic pain relievers like Tylenol or ibuprofen or, Advil or oh my god, my brain just died. But, basic pain relievers where you probably would have to down the whole bottle before something bad happened. For the most part, find out what medications you need, and if there's an over-the-counter version, go for that. I mean, and doctors are usually going to tell you that. Because most doctors actually understand that the point is that not everybody can afford certain medicines. So, yeah, go to the doctor. If the doctor says Opill is perfectly safe, you don't need a prescription. Just go to the pharmacy, get the damn Opill. If you have any concerns. So, yeah, there could be some misuse. I'm not going to say there won't be. And there are going to be some women who have a problem with it, but there are ways around it. So, I don't know if it's going to be so bad that it's going to end up having to be pulled or anything. At least that's what I'm hoping. The FDA's action only applies to Opill. It's an older class of contraceptives, sometimes called mini pills, that contain a single synthetic hormone and generally carry fewer side effects than more popular combination hormone pills. Okay. Women's health advocates hope the decision paves the way for more over-the-counter birth control options and eventually for abortion pills to do the same. And considering the court case about mifepristone, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. An outside panel of FDA advisors unanimously voted in favor of the switch at a hearing in May, where dozens of public speakers called for Opill's approval. Divya Hutron was among those who presented, explaining how she has been unable to get prescription birth control more than 3 years after becoming sexually active. The 19-year-old University of Alabama student said she still isn't comfortable getting a prescription because the school's health system reports medical exams and medications to parents. Which I'm under the impression that, since it's over the counter, you don't need a parent's permission. And I'm sorry, she's freaking 19 and it gets reported to the parents. She is an adult. It's a rarity you get someone under the age of 18 in college. What the hell are you doing reporting to the parents? I mean, it's one thing to report criminal activity, but they don't need to know that you're getting these medications or going through these medical exams. I mean, first off, she's a woman, so she's going to have these exams whether she's sexually active or not. Number two, like I mentioned, women can be on birth control simply to regulate their period. So again, why freak out parents who don't want to think about their little girls having sex by telling them this? But this is Alabama, so, ew. My parents did not let me go on the pill, Hutron said in a recent interview. There was just a lot of cultural stigma around being sexually active before you're married. Then tell her it's to regulate your period. I'm starting to think that the reason that articles like this don't even mention that is because it is so unknown that is a reason to take birth control, that it never occurs to these reporters to mention that. While she uses other forms of contraception, I would have much preferred to have birth control and use these additional methods to ensure that I was being as safe as possible. Advocates were particularly interested in O-pill because it raised few safety concerns. The pill was first approved in the U.S. 5 decades ago. It's been around a long time, and we have a large amount of data supporting that the pill is safe and effective for over-the-counter use. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Newer birth control pills typically combine two hormones, estrogen and progesterone, which can help make periods lighter and more regular. Yes, we finally got at least a little bit into the regulation of periods. But their use carries a heightened risk of blood clots, like basically all birth control, and they shouldn't be used by women at risk for heart problems, such as those who smoke and are over 35. So, yeah, actually, I do remember when everyone was freaking out about the COVID vaccine that some women were of childbearing age were developing blood clots. The question was, okay, first off, is it because of the COVID vaccine, or are they on birth control? One comedic writer even pointed out that she's at higher risk of getting blood clots from her birth control pills than she would be from the COVID vaccine. So, yeah, that is very much a thing. O-pill has only progestin, which prevents pregnancy by blocking sperm from reaching the cervix. It must be taken around the same time daily to be most effective. In its internal, which is probably why people go with newer contraceptives, because it's not always possible to take pills exactly at the same time every day. So, in its internal review published in May, the FDA noted that some women in Perrigo's study had trouble understanding the drug's labeling information. Well, that's not good. In particular, the instructions warned that women with a history of breast cancer should not take the pill because it could spur tumor growth. Ay, ay, ay. Common side effects include irregular vaginal bleeding, headaches, dizziness, and cramps, according to the FDA. The label also cautions that certain drugs can interfere with O-pill's effectiveness, including medications for seizures, HIV, and hypertension. Yeah. Perrigo executives said the company will spend the rest of the year manufacturing the pill so it can be available in stores early next year. Okay, now, common side effects. Irregular vaginal bleeding. Well, that's probably, the reason why a lot of women take birth control pills, like I said, to regulate the periods. So that's basically doing the very thing that's opposite to that. I don't know about the headaches, dizziness, and cramps. That basically sounds like your period. So I got those, well, maybe not the dizziness, but headaches, cramps. Oh dear God, the cramps. Yeah, I got those on my period. So basically what they're telling me is, yeah, the O-pill would have done squat for you. So good to know. But like everything, you have to take the pros and cons. Like that history of breast cancer. Yeah, it should be worded to emphasize that it's history of breast cancer. It's not that any old woman who doesn't have a history, who taking the pill is not going to suddenly, she's not going to suddenly develop breast cancer. But yeah, that's a, ugh. Yeah, would I take this if I still needed to take birth control? Probably not. Would I want to go through all of that? Yeah, I go through all of that without birth control. I went through all of that without birth control. Wouldn't need to do it with. That would kind of defeat the purpose. For me anyway. But I'm sure there's plenty of women this will help. So that is all I have for this article. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video.